It all started with a sound. The Colorado man heard the soft squeak from somewhere nearby, and he sensed danger. That didn't stop him from following his ears to a dark situation. Though he was reluctant to give his name when reporters finally caught up to him, he didn't hesitate to share the details of his harrowing night outside Denver. The anonymous man, who we'll call Anonymous for the sake of simplicity, was outside of a tire shop in Commerce City, a suburb about 15 minutes from Denver, Colorado. Even on the freezing October night, he could hear a sound of distress. The streets were empty. It was 19 degrees outside after all, and coronavirus restrictions were still limiting the number of Coloradans out and about. If Anonymous didn't track down the sound, no one would. And the urge to act only grew as he realized what was making the noise. Anonymous followed the animal cries to a parked semi-truck, and he had to do a bit of searching to discover the source of the sounds. When he checked one of the truck's tires, his suspicions were confirmed. Within one of the trailer's tires, Anonymous found a small tabby kitten completely stuck. He'd been following what he suspected were meows, though he didn't expect to see such a dire situation. Because it was so cold outside, the kitten was frozen to the metal. Anonymous knew time was running out for the little one. Even in normal circumstances, a kitten without her mother isn't long for the world. Throw in sub-freezing temperatures and a miserable sense of isolation, and the situation becomes a lot more dire. He wanted to get this kitten to safety and back home. Rather than run for help, the man rushed to help the kitten himself. He grabbed some warm water to melt the ice without burning the trapped kitten. The operation was going to be a delicate one. Could he melt the ice, keep the kitten safe, and make sure he didn't run off? As carefully and quickly as he could, the man began to thaw the kitten out. He gently applied warm water to the kitten's paws and tail, while keeping him dry with a separate towel. Shivering from the intense cold, Anonymous tried not to rush the job. For nearly half an hour, the kind stranger continually thawed and dried the kitten until finally the little one was freed. Anonymous bundled his new friend up in a blanket right away and rushed her over to a local animal shelter. The tabby's life was still in danger, with hypothermia looming in the freezing cold. He wasn't sure how long the kitten was left out, unprotected in the freezing temperatures, but the frostbite was certainly doing a number on her health. Anonymous did his best to keep the kitten warm as he drove through snowy Colorado. He knew just where to take him. The man brought him to a Denver animal shelter called Dumb Friends League. There, helpers shelter animals, raise money via donations, and perform life-saving operations. It's one of the spots in town where a kitten could be brought back from the brink. The little kitten was taken into the shelter's care. He continued to shiver from the cold and fear for his life, so the veterinary staff took their time to care for the frightened tabby as gently as they could. Getting him on his feet and back home was going to be a tough endeavor. Eventually, the little tabby calmed down with the tender care the staff gave her. A full examination showed that the main concern was the frostbite on her paws, but she was rescued and brought to them before any major health concerns surfaced. The kitten was on his way to recovery. Veterinarians determined he was about 5 weeks old, and in his condition had to remain in the care of the shelter. Also, the feline was male, not female. They named him Xerxes after a Persian king. They figured the name commanded a certain respect, which the feline definitely earned after freezing to a semi-truck tire. Over time, he became more friendly and playful, and made a full recovery from the frostbite. But Xerxes' story wasn't quite over. Dumb Friends League, like Anonymous, wanted Xerxes to find a great home, which was a tough mission to pull off in a pandemic. While there would be some who would take the time to give round-the-clock care for a newborn kitten, life was a little chaotic in 2020 Colorado at the time, and caring for a 5-week-old kitten wasn't a simple undertaking. So, Xerxes moved into the shelter, though an old friend was keeping an eye on him. At the shelter, Xerxes received round-the-clock attention until he was strong enough to move out, about 8 weeks old. When he hit the threshold, the hard-working vets knew it was time for him to find a forever home, and they had the perfect candidate in mind. When Xerxes was finally old enough for adoption, he found himself back in the arms of his hero. Anonymous had stayed in contact with the shelter while Xerxes was recovering, and adopted the cat as soon as he could. While we don't know much about the man, we do know this. Xerxes the kitten has that compassionate stranger to thank for saving his life. The Dumb Friend League said that if it weren't for his heroic acts, Xerxes would not have made it. The hero of this tale never really forgot about the shivering kitten alone in the snow, and the rescue left him with a sense of longing. To know the poor creature he worked so hard to protect was doing well was not enough. Now that he has Xerxes at home with him, he's learning all about his new friend, finally coming to understand some of the strangest cat behaviors. If you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up and consider sharing it with someone who may find it interesting. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next one.